Sharing to live. All right. Meeting is being live streamed. See what we got. See who's the first. There he is. There's our chat. We have one lucky person watching so far. Sure, we'll get more. Try to wait till we get 10 to 15 people before we really launch into it so people don't miss out on all our goodies, our pearls of wisdom. I will say, as always, everyone can check out rulethewasteland.com.
Actually, I should do I should go on my TikTok and just say, hey, come join us tonight at
Put out a
Rule the Wasteland.
A YouTube, yeah. To Rule the Wasteland.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Good deal. Welcome everyone. Welcome.
What's going on, guys? What's happening in your neck of the woods there, Dan? Didn't find out what's happening. Dan's rolled.
Yep, he took off his headphones. You can't hear us.
Oh, he did. I was looking at the chat and over here.
I think he's
he's
doing a quick TikTok shout out. I will say though, that looks like no one. I'm some of you know I lived in Florida for most of my life, so I have a lot of family there. Luckily, no one was severely affected by the hurricane, so that's good. But most of it, there was some pretty crazy devastation from the hurricane, and it hit a little farther south in Florida, I think, than they were expecting. It was supposed to hit Tampa area and went a little bit south, but most of my family is in the other coast, so they got terrible weather, but no real damage. So that's good.
Do they? I'm wondering, because the building standard there, is there a mega standard that
they have
a company that'll come out and say, okay, look, we'll build you a house and it's going to be, it's going to withstand XYZ standards, basically.
Well, I'm sure you can. Yeah, I'm sure you can go above and beyond, but the state has building codes that are beyond what other states would have because of the hurricanes. And so when you do your normal housing inspection on like a new build, you have to meet certain standards with hurricane straps, which are like metal pieces that go between wood trusses to like hold it together and stuff like that, and other things that you wouldn't have to do if you were building a house in, maybe Alabama or Tennessee or something like that. So you can certainly go above and beyond that too, if you wanted to, but there are even just the basics, what it requires to legally build a building are higher than, because of the hurricanes, than what they would be in other places. And you can get away with stuff in Florida. A lot of areas use concrete block that you can't really use in up north because it doesn't insulate very well. But in Florida, that's not an issue. So a lot of houses we use concrete block, which is pretty tough.
Yeah, amazing.
But if you're right on the beach, I mean, like right where it comes ashore, your house is getting jacked up. The roof and everything, you lose shingles. Some of them were just plain leveled. It's usually the storm surge, which is the big problem, where basically the wind just pushes all the water in. So instead of being on the water, you're 9 feet underwater, like water up to your roof and everything.
I seen one TikTok out there. A person was in a dinghy in their living room. And,
just sitting there floating around.
That's wild. How do you not laugh at that, I guess? But
yeah, it's pretty surreal, right? Yeah, I lived through dozens of hurricanes when I was in Florida, but the areas I was in was never the parts that got really hardest hit. And we seemed to, for like the last 10 years that I was in Florida, it was like a doldrums. We didn't really have any bad hurricanes for quite a while. That's what's so weird to me when they're like, oh, the global warming is doing this. If you'd voted for Democrats, this wouldn't have happened. And I'm like, bro, I've lived in Florida for 30 years. All right. We get hurricanes all the time. We've had really bad ones. We've had years of no hurricanes. Like, give me a break. The way you vote.
Well, you know what? That's one thing that I really just don't understand. So that Fiona hit Canada, and I seen several TikToks of people getting ready, prepared, and getting gas, getting
Right.
Extra food just in case something were to happen, because they know something's going to happen.
Right.
It hits. People are like, holy shit, this is fucking really bad, and it's, and then there's people on TikTok who's like, well, I've had power out for the past 2 days, and where's the help? Where's
right?
You fucking moron! It didn't just come. It just
right. And not only that, but that's what I was always baffled when I lived there. That I'd be like, guys, this is every year this happens. Like, how can you not just have like a basic hurricane press? People would be rushing out before the big hurricanes every time. And I'm like, bro, you live here. This is every year this happens. How can you be caught off guard every time?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I just, people don't think that they have to prepare and have to get extra things. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, like, and then they blame other people for their, failing at
Right,
doing
like
stuff.
argue with people and
Oh.
fighting over the stuff when like 2 weeks ago, if you told them to do that, buy the same stuff, they would think you're crazy, and then now they think it's totally, now they're like fighting people over it, and they don't like internalize or think about like that for next year either.
Right.
Wild.
It's silly.
And yeah, we're
And
definitely
then,
seeing a lot more of that in the coming years with all the crazy stuff that's happening non-weather related.
oh yeah,
Think of what that's going to be like if, God forbid, there is some sort of like nuclear event or something. Panic will be legendary.
yeah. I guess you'll be able to build yourself a toilet paper fort and hope for the best.
Yeah, well, that was like, and that's, I'm expecting that type of stuff. No, I'm not expecting. I made a video where I don't actually think it certainly could happen, but I think if I had to bet my life on one or the other, I'm going to say that I don't think there'll be any nuclear attack within the next year or two. Hopefully, sure hope so, but I'm still taking precautions in case it does. But I do think we'll see a lot of like kind of like the toilet paper stuff we saw in COVID, but for all sorts of different stuff. And like, if all the prepping I'd ever done, if that's all it did is keep me out of those crazy lines of normies trying, that's worth it.
Well, yeah, and then you're preparing for stuff. Like a normal prepper would just buy every grocery shop, go out and buy, 10, 15, 20, $30 worth of stuff. And then all these other yahoos are going out and just buying it all at one go. And then that brings the whole chaos into everything where nobody
Right.
can buy shit. But it's funny. It's like people expect, we'll go back to the Fiona thing where this guy that I don't know, said something to me on TikTok. It really set me off. But, he's not.
What do you say?
So he was
You don't
doing.
mind me asking?
Well, yeah. Okay. So
You didn't
basically,
like your beard? What happened?
no, he just.
Was it your alt account, Shay?
No, yeah, exactly. Well, basically, you know what? If you're gonna talk shit on social media, don't make it so fucking easy to find you. So he said something to me, maybe, I have that, whatever. But I was able to find out, he's got a couple kids from a divorce. He lives with his mommy. He's, he's basically over 40 years old, lives with his mother, and he's on EI, POGI, unemployment insurance. And then I tried calling.
He's literally like a broke troll living in his mom's basement.
Yeah, and I tried to call him today because I was able to find his phone number, and of course they didn't pick up or whatever. But man, I just don't get it. But he's like, well, this is bullshit. All these people with generators aren't sharing with their neighbors. It's like, well, go buy a fucking generator, man. They're only about $200 or $300. Then I'm like, oh, he's on POGI.
Yeah.
But how much rent is he paying his mother?
Probably nothing.
It reminds me of that Will Ferrell, Ma, get the meatloaf. You know what I mean? Like, you piece of shit loser. There's kids out there that are going to school, but they have 2 or 3 jobs to fucking make up.
Yeah, and imagine what these guys are going to be like when they can't even get the meager stuff at the store that they're used to.
Oh,
they're going to lose it.
Yeah, they're going to lose it. They fall over dead. But
yeah, that reminds me of it was a movie that was totally forgettable movie, with Val Kilmer called Spartan. I don't even, it's like some kind of military espionage type movie or something. But in the movie, he asks this guy, you've had your whole life to prepare for this moment. Why aren't you ready? And I always think about that. Because that's what you can say to all these people. And they're like, ready for what? And you're like, well, exactly. You don't know. But you had just as much time as anyone else, as any one of us, to prepare for what's happening now.
So I'm just going to answer the first last. His comment right here, it says he has a they have an uneasy feeling about the upcoming week. Anybody else? And yeah, there's been something in the back of my mind the last few days that just the way with this shit's happening, it's like, I don't know. I think October is going to be, I think October is going to put 2020 to shame, so to speak.
Yeah, we're in a weird position where there's also, I have nothing specific to think that will happen in the next week exactly. But there's so many things right now that could happen at any moment that, like, sure, I definitely am feeling a lot more uneasy about the general state of the world now than I was a year or two ago, or at some random time in my life. And but yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and that's like, I have a list of some of the stuff going on, like specifically the next week. I mean, the only thing that's happened literally within the past few days is the what do they call them? The annexing. They did the votes to annex part of Russia. So now these territories that Russia has taken over, part of Ukraine, the 20% of Ukraine or whatever, are now, according to Russia, officially part of Russia. So anything that happens there, it's no longer, in Russia's eyes, them fighting in Ukraine. It's now Russian sovereign territory. So they're going to react to anything happening there a lot more seriously. Then we have the economic stuff happening. Basically the financial system's really stressed all over the world, especially England and Japan were both selling massive amounts of US treasuries to prop up their currency, to buy back their currency, to like juice the value. So that's going to hurt US treasuries, and other countries are going to start doing that. There's tons of weird stuff. I know if you guys have heard of the Economic Ninja channel, he predicted specific, because I'm keeping track of this. I don't know if you guys saw my video, but there's YouTubers all over the place are always throwing out like ideas and predictions. So I'm like, I'm gonna start keeping track of these motherfuckers, see which ones actually know what they're talking about, which ones just complete full of shit and go back and never talk about their mistakes again or whatever, and see who's right. Not just to, catch people who are wrong, but also to find out who's got a good handle on the situation. So I'm actually like writing some of these down. And one of the ones he said, he expects a bank collapse, some major bank like Lehman style, to collapse within 8 weeks. So we'll see if that happens. And if it does, then that would mean he has at least a decent handle on the situation. But it's certainly possible. But that's what's so crazy. It's like the whole situation is like, if a bridge has been built with weak materials that can't handle the weight of a car, when you're driving the car across it, you're gonna be like, oh my God, it could break at any moment. And then if you happen to make it across, it'll feel like nothing happened. But you have no idea like how close you were or weren't to that thing breaking. You just know it was a possibility. And that's what the whole thing feels like now.
Well, as we were discussing before we went live, like I said, last Friday, I was paying $1.88 a liter for fuel. It's now at some gas stations, $2.30 a liter. Some other gas stations have it at $2.39. So we're looking at it between a 42 to a 49 cent jump per liter. Now I know in the States you guys use gallons, so it's roughly between $8 and $9 a gallon for fuel. In a week's time, it jumped, and they expect it to jump even higher. I made the stupid mistake to buy shares in a bank, and when I bought those shares, they were at $88 a share. They're now down to like 60. Oh, I think last time I try not to look anymore because it just breaks my heart.
Painful.
But yeah, I think it's at last time I looked was $67 a share.
So it's like down 25% or something.
Yeah, I'm down 10 grand. It's yeah, it's a bit of a piss off, but I don't know. It's
it's part of life, man. You'll never purchase at the lowest, and you'll never sell at the highest, and you got to accept it. And long-term strategy is to hold. Majority of the times you'll make more. People that hold long-term make more money, right? But it's because it's shitty to see some of this crypto stuff. But a long-term picture is what I have in store. But I kind of on Eric's way with respect to just everything's just sort of gloomy and shitty right now with society in general, with everything.
Yeah.
With all these, and I think we're in different times. We're in a different. There's a new lens on humanity where we can't go back pre-COVID, and there's just so much fuckery that's happened since then. And it's not looking good. You know what I mean? Like there's a new lens, and we're going to talk about pre-COVID times in the future. People will be like, "What? Really?"
Right.
And like confused. Like you could just go to the park.
Yeah. BC will be before COVID.
Yeah. Jesus. It's going to be funny. Be like, oh, I remember going to the movie theater and you didn't have to wear a fucking mask. And
yeah.
Oh my God. But I don't know how it is in the States, but over here in BC, people are still wearing their masks. They're wearing that paper mask and then they're throwing them on the fucking ground.
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
They're out there. It's not it's definitely not a majority, but it's a surprising to me minority. You know, maybe I would say maybe 5 to 10% of people are still wearing masks out. So not a lot, but definitely they're out there. And I'm like, I don't get it, because like the cloth ones, like you're saying, like if you really think that COVID is still a risk to you, it's not like you can't get the N95s anymore, like originally when they're all sold out. So like, why would you ever wear the cloth? Well, first of all, why would you go out? You can order the stuff online if you really think there's still a risk. And if you do have to, why wouldn't you at least wear the N95 and not like crumple up this dirty cloth mask?
Because people are they're watching TV or they're watching the news and they believe what's going on and they think they think COVID's airborne and they think COVID's still a thing. And
yeah, well, just in general, they don't make decisions based on information and logic. They make it based on their feelings, you know, and that makes them feel better or whatever. So,
well, I guess, you know what, if it makes you feel better to wear a mask, by all means, stop throwing it in the fucking ground when you're done with it.
Yeah, exactly.
you fucking filthy
piles
cretins.
Of garbage everywhere.
Oh man, it's a shit show.
Yeah, definitely wild times out there. But yeah, so it's hard to, I don't think, to go back to the question, I don't think the next week is specific, but anything could happen at any moment. You know what I mean? Like we're at a position where the conflict in Ukraine is going to continue to expand. They're already talking about trying to get Ukraine into NATO, which is sort of the equivalent of like Russia's doing with annexing the territory, because now if Ukraine becomes a NATO country, we can say, oh, well, now you declared war on NATO. That's everyone. So it's the same thing as them being like, oh, now you're attacking Russian soil. So it's just the NATO version of doing the same thing, of annexing that territory, so to speak. So they have an excuse. And what that's going to look like is going to be weird. There was another, and for my prediction thing, I want people to send me, not your predictions, but people who have like accounts or are commentators who do this regularly and make a concrete prediction. It has to be something that you can like measure and falsify whether it happened or didn't within a certain amount of time. So if it's a general prediction, like we've just said about things are going to get worse over the next 2 years, that's not something that you can really say. But I'm talking about if like when Robert Kiyosaki comes out and says there's going to be a market crash in October and it didn't happen, like that's easy to say, no, it didn't happen again. But yeah, so one of the ones was the guy that I think it was Canadian Prepper had him on, was David Bine, I think was his name. Let me see if he's up there. He said his prediction was, and this is at least one that you can falsify, was he says China will invade Taiwan by the end of 23, but probably late spring. So probably within 6 months, but he says certainly by the end of 2023. So that's on the list. Then we have, like I said, Economic Ninja saying there'll be at least one large bank, at least as big as Lehman, will collapse within the next 8 weeks. And then I've made my prediction video where I said I think at some point over the next 2 years, we'll see a housing and market crash of at least 25%. And so if you have specific ones like that, it has to either be a specific metric with a general time or a specific time frame with a general metric so we can falsify it. Send me links to those at rulethewasteland@gmail.com and I will add them to my list, which when I have more than like 3 or 4 predictions, I'll go ahead and post them to my website and put a link on there so we can. What does B Hill have to say? Appreciate the super chat. He says, war with Russia seems more likely every day. I mean, we are at war with Russia. Bottom line, we are at war with Russia. It's just a question of how significantly it's going to increase from here. NATO is directly and openly supplying financial aid and arms to Ukraine. So we are involved in this war. We just haven't yet had official NATO boots on the ground. I'm sure they've got spec ops and CIA guys down there, but we haven't put like a active duty military units over there yet. But eventually, like I've said before, we can give them all the money they want. Russia's just mobilized anywhere from 300,000 to 1.2 million troops, depending on who you ask. They were fighting at a disadvantage troop-wise, Ukraine, and still took over 20% of the country. So at some point, Ukraine's going to run out of its own troops and mercenaries. And at that point, either Russia's going to win or NATO is going to directly get involved. And that's when it gets hairy.
I was laughing there for a second because we're talking about predictions. It's something that Bruce Beach from that Arc 2 bunker used to do all the time.
Yeah.
The gentleman that buried the 42 school buses underground.
Drank the black V8.
Yes, that's it. Drank the black V8. And he would say, every time I saw him, it was a different date. It was a different type of event. And it was with the utmost certainty. But he was very specific. It was like certain days and times. It was
right.
and none of them happened. And I would like to see the final list that you come up with, Eric. Maybe we can talk about it live next time we're on the air.
For sure.
And
and
get all our own sort of intake on plausibility, or like how much we individually feel the likelihood of it happening.
Yeah, we could put our own, like, what we think, if yes or no too, to see how we stack. Because that's the thing, is it's not about just dragging these people for being wrong. Like with someone like that guy Beach, I think it's important because some of the stuff happens, like think about to when Russia invaded Ukraine first, like when it first happened. That feels like a lifetime ago at this point. And that was only, what, 6 months ago, maybe?
Yeah, 7-8 months ago.
And so it's easy to forget what people are saying, and it's easy to forget what we ourselves might have said specifically. So I think it's important to go back, and if you realize I was wrong about this, and I've made these like 4 predictions in a row that were all wrong, then I need to reevaluate like why I'm thinking this. Either my assumptions about the situation are wrong, or the information I'm getting and using is wrong, but something I need to adjust if I'm just going to be continually wrong. And at the same time, if we're looking at someone else, we need to be able to say, this person, same thing, they don't have a handle on this. I shouldn't get too worried when they make a prediction. Or this other guy, he's had he's 4 out of 5. It's pretty good handle on what's going on. I'm going to listen to him even when he says something that I don't think is true. Maybe I should listen. So it could be very useful.
Or maybe what we should do is we'd also just watch The Simpsons, because those guys been pretty bang on for the last couple things. Like it's uncanny the amount of things that The Simpsons have predicted or had a show or what have you, and has happened. It makes no sense to me, but yeah, that's maybe The Simpsons are the way to go.
Could be.
Halloween's coming up. I'll get a crystal ball and roll that around. Maybe we can get some ideas. What's going to happen?
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, you know what? Truth be told, and to give some credit to, I wouldn't say people that can see the future or have this forethought, but there's definitely something to be said about human behavior, something about history, something about how, where the puck is going, as they say. So in hockey. So, and there's some financial people that I listen to. You're right. Some of them are full of shit, and some of them have some value behind what they say. So you have to choose carefully it's like you got to filter through a lot of garbage really to get to the core of what.
Not only that, but just to realize how much different it can be to be wrong about a prediction specifically, even if you were right about the general trend. Like think about one of these guys who's predicting a crash maybe for, let's say they predicted in September or October, and it happens in like January or like March of next year or whatever. Like they're actually like, that's pretty close. Like they sense there was a crash coming. It was within a few months. But if you make your decisions and actions around it happening in October, you could lose everything. If you structure your bets and your investments for a crash at the exact time. So just realizing what type of information you should act on and how versus specific, like to use your hockey analogy, if you were preparing for someone to like try to score at exact minute of the game versus knowing that this team's going to take twice as many shots on goal as the previous team, so we have to be ready defensively, versus like expecting them to do it at some exact moment in the game with some exact player, you're going to be put in a bad spot if that exact thing doesn't happen. Or to use the hurricane, we're talking about the hurricane, when they have that cone of uncertainty, they call it. If you try to bet based on exactly where it's going to land, you might end up, it's kind of like putting your eggs all in one basket. You might end up being completely right. But if it's off by just a little bit and you bet on it being exactly right, you could be kind of right and still have serious negative consequences.
Sure. And that's subjective to individual emotions. So everybody's different. So you'd like to think everybody would want to be rational, logical, and look at stats and make an educated guess based on the information that is completely conducive to the topic or whatever it is that you're looking at, the stock, crypto, or whatever. But also there's a lot of boiler room talk. There's a lot of emotion. A lot of people are emotional. A lot of decisions that happen in politics are emotional. Rules that are being imposed upon us are derived from emotion. So it's not I'm not saying that's bad or good. But when it comes to the stock market or what may happen in the future, I question, and not any of the sources you mentioned specifically today, but I question the person doing the research. I think that's probably the best way to put it. There's only a handful of sources I listen to now. I don't really trust what most people have to say. And that's because I don't It's not because I don't like them. It's just most people get their information off it. No offense, Dan. It's TikTok. It's there's not a lot of good sources out there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Or worse, actual news.
Yeah. Or the actual news. Google.
And that's it. That's what we're saying. Like, you can make what would be the correct decision, but if it's with bad info, then it's going to have a bad outcome. You know what I mean?
That's just and further to what you're saying, Shay, about I seen a couple of videos on TikTok about this teacher in Ontario who was walking around with big fake titties and
it's a dude, by the way.
It's a dude. So anyway, I heard another story today, and now I got to do some research on this just to make sure it's true or not. Basically, the school board was going to fire this guy because
I heard it's a big scam. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he was acting too much of a man. He was too manly at work.
Too or like toxically masculine or something.
Yeah. So basically, he is now the story that's saying that. So he was like, "Oh, I'm too much of a man for this school. Not a problem." So,
oh my god. Okay, so he did the boobs as a result of being
right. He's saying now I'm transgender.
Yeah.
And as part of my trans identity, I have to wear these giant. They're like enormous, like these giant fetish fake boobs thing. And I desperately hope that that's true, because it's a complete like black knighting, they call it, when you like.
Exactly. So
malicious rule following or maliciously use the system, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. He's now trolling the school system to.
And they can't do shit, because if they fire him, he'll be like, "You just don't like trans. You're discriminating."
Exactly.
Trans identity.
So again, I'll have to do some research on that.
Look up the picture. It's like these giant fake boobs with like protruding nipples, and they're like literally it's crazy. Enormous. It's hilarious.
It must be driving some of the upside like crazy, and they're bored there. There's some of these old witty bitty people.
But yeah, if that's the case, well then fucking good on him.
Right.
Sir,
hope that's why I said I desperately hope that's true, because otherwise this person's just completely lunatic.
Well, yeah, definitely. Because
that would be awesome.
Now it's all over the fucking news about
international. Like, we're hearing about that shit over here. It's everywhere.
It's
crazy.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, he says the guy is sick. Like, obviously he's a sick puppy either way, but at least he's it's hilarious if he's trolling it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Can you imagine?
Use it. 'Tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with their own petard, as Shakespeare said.
Can you imagine? It'd be like, yeah, sorry, we're gonna have to let you go because you're too much of a man.
Right, and then be like, "Well, here you go, buddy.
Hold my beer."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, holy fuck! If that's the case, then
right.
Hats off to that dude.
Yeah, and as soon as one other teacher accidentally says something about it, like, "Could you not wear those giant?" He'll be like, "Oh, this is who I am," and then he'll get a big lawsuit.
Oh, buddy, yeah.
It's just a cesspool of lunacy out there. I'm amazed.
A scum of hive and villainy.
I don't know. I was talking to the other day. They were saying something like, just like the act of a man walking up to a woman and like hitting on a girl is like rare these days.
It's like violence.
It's like everybody's online,
right?
Everybody's swiping left and right. It's, hookup culture and traditional values, like this whole talking, sitting down for coffee or having a beer. Doesn't exist. No, it's everybody's the screen people. We live in the new society now. The screen people.
Like, we should, set up one of those speed dating again. There's got to be that kicking around, like back in the old days when you actually had to talk to people face to face.
Right.
Like, come on, be a lot of fun, I think.
Just spin through the chairs. Someone said.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. I was going to
email you
some. Yeah, go for it. Destiny had said something back here about cash. And I wanted to mention that because I do think there's a few things I want to talk about what you can actually do about some of this stuff too, not just talk about everything that's happening. But some people don't seem to know, but it's always been difficult to get large quantities of cash out of the bank. They never wanted to give you bank. They never keep enough on hand. And but it definitely has gotten worse. I will concede that for sure. And we've said this back from when COVID was starting getting weird, and it's certainly the case now. I definitely think everyone should have a month or two minimum of literal physical cash if they can't afford it on hand to pay for expenses. If you can't, you can't. But if you have the money, it's better to have it in cash than to be sitting in a bank where if things go bad, you're not going to be able to get to it. And it doesn't even have to get really bad. Like, we could have internet outages. I know that happened up near you guys, right? The payment processors went down not long ago. If the internet goes down, the electricity goes down, if the banks themselves just stop. If they have any solvency issues and everything, there's all sorts of reasons why you're not going to be able to use electronic money, and cash would be necessary. So you're not earning any interest in the bank anyway. So have a few $1,000 if you can afford it in physical cash. Smaller bills would be easier to use for small transactions. But anything would be better than nothing. And a couple months if you can, I definitely recommend.
I always, when I get paid, I'll take $500 or $600 out, carry it in my wallet, and because you just never know, something might happen where you must need cash. Now, in my safe at home, I try to keep about $5,000 to $6,000 just in bills to just throw in there for whatever you may need something. And then obviously I'm not buying silver anymore because I was that shit to bet on me as well. So
just hang on to that. You won't lose money on silver. I can almost,
I 100%
guarantee that.
Yeah, I'll never. And that's the thing with the my bank stocks. That somebody said you didn't lose 10,000. You're 100% right. I didn't lose 10,000 at all because I gotta probably hold on to that until whenever
or whatever later.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just one of those things. You never know. You might have to use
and
a silver bar to get out of the province.
Exactly. And could be something like that to get across a border or whatever. And I also think with the cash, if we do see something like a bank collapse, which I think we'll see stuff like that all over the place over the next couple of years, there's going to be, in my opinion, at some point before we see a melt up like money printing, crazy inflation, there will be some kind of crash. And in that moment, when everyone's trying to escape assets and cash out, you'll be able to buy some things at rock bottom prices if you have the ability to pay for it, like in cash.
Oh, yeah, whether absolutely.
That's vehicles, guns, gold and silver, maybe even real estate, stuff like that. So
this dark picture you're painting is certainly, yes, agreed. We're going in that direction. But as you stated, there's opportunity to make a lot of money. There's huge potential for people if you have some investments.
Right.
Some cash set aside for sure.
Yeah, and just think about a situation like that. Like, say the internet goes down, or there's a major banking crisis, and no one has cash, and they'll be like, here's my whatever, maybe some tools you need, maybe some. If you have a lot of cash on hand, and or they have gold and silver, but like you still can't go pay your mortgage or whatever in gold and silver yet. So maybe they'll need to sell that at desperation prices to be able to go pay their bills or get medicine or whatever.
Yeah,
so you could get sick deals.
What do you guys think of these freedom networks that are popping up everywhere? We have seen a few here in Ontario.
I'm not sure I even know what that is. What is the idea?
A lot of people are pissed off. They're getting together. They're starting at the ground roots.
Okay, so just different types of organization, not quite militias, but some kind of disorganization.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how to categorize them. I mean, I've done some presentations for them. I've got one, a couple coming up, and they're communities of people that are preppers. They're trying to get off grid. They're trying to get into the municipal system and take over the government from the ground up, from the foundation, and get elected into these smaller communities so that they can reframe it in the way that they want.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. I know that and you're talking about people like trying to get elected and to not take over, but
exactly.
Yeah, and I know that JJ's talked about that he thinks that's one of the best ways to actually, and probably the only way to really make a difference politically, is to start slowly working your way in, people who have the right mindset, working their way into local governments. Because if you have the city and county, especially county and state level governments, have a lot of power, you know what I mean, over your day-to-day lives, more so than the federal government in a lot of situations. And we've seen recently even how states and county governments can even stand up to the federal government in a lot of situations. So I think it's a great idea. How effective it will be remains to be seen. I think in a lot of areas we're just simply outnumbered by illegal immigrants. And
what if it's the thing because of the trucker convoy happened here? I wonder if it's happening as a result of that. But there's a few they're going right for the they want to take over townships, like not in a non-malicious way. I mean, there's people that are running for mayor, council, and stuff like that, and they're expecting things to go south, so they're prepping their whole life around things going sour quickly. So It's just whatever. Yeah, I'll come and give a
it's
talk. I did a security talk on bugging in or whatever, and it was neat. It's amazing that these communities are starting up. I'm kind of funny that I haven't heard anything out there.
Yeah, I
More
mean,
for
we've
Dan
had
than
stuff
anything.
back in the day, like in like the Free State Project, which the theory is sound. The idea was that everyone who's like libertarian minded would all move to one state, and that would happen basically. They'd take over everything with people who are of that political mindset. And it didn't really work out because I think a state's too big and people can't just move or whatever always. But the idea is sound. If you could find a small area, and I know there was actually a documentary about this Indian cult that actually did this. They moved to a town in Eastern Oregon, like out in the middle of nowhere, and like it was a town of 1,500 people or whatever. So they moved there like 500 people over there, and like started taking over all the city government. And then they had like, so now we're the police, so we'll just buy all these fucking weapons and everything. And they're like, the only reason it didn't like work, because I mean, it is like eventually they went so crazy that they tried to like poison people. They put like E. coli in the salad bar and everything, and like tried to kill off everyone, and they're getting really belligerent about it. But the theory was like working. They had literally like kind of taken over this town by doing that, but like legally most of the time, getting them elected by having all their people vote and everything. But then they started doing all sorts of weird shit too, like they would bus in homeless people to vote. And but then the homeless people like wouldn't leave, and it like fucked it all up.
We'll give you a hot dog.
Yeah, really. They were like, yeah, because I think they were like, they didn't understand that like in India, homeless people, a lot of people are homeless just because it's hard to not be poor in a third world country, basically. But over here, people are homeless because they're fucking crazy. You know what I mean? Or schizo, or just wasted on drugs. Very few people are just actually having short-term difficulties. It does happen. It's happening more now than it did in the past. But most the homeless people who are willing to be bused to another state to vote for like a cup of coffee or whatever are like, going to be smeared in their own shit later that day. And so it fucked everything up.
Yeah, we're fortunate. People are. I don't understand some of these people. They white people problems. So is how I put it.
Yeah.
This whatever you want to call COVID has created a huge cesspool of mental illness, and for some people it's created mental clarity. Sure, some people got ripped, some people discovered who they are and bettered themselves, but at the same time it destroyed families, and it created a lot of havoc for people. So it's I think we've got a very long road ahead of us yet. And it's funny because you're saying, well, Eric rather is saying, well, somebody's suggesting this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, or this. I got no crystal ball. I'm just assuming the worst is going to happen. So I'm just prepping even more now, more than ever, because it's just getting worse, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I think the chance of anything happening are just way, way higher right now than they have been at any point, even in my lifetime.
Yeah. And like, I hate to be doom and gloom here, but like, maybe let's give us what's happening positively around the planet. I mean, at least we can focus on it,
right.
Doom and gloom path. I'll tell you what. Did you get my email?
Yeah, I just got. I have two of my own memes. Oh, the London event or the memes? I got the memes.
We'll do the London event quick if you don't mind.
Yeah, let me see. Let me pop that open.
Shay, I'm gonna need your address because I'm gonna send you a can of WD-40 for that fucking chair of yours. Jesus.
All right, here. I will.
I'm sorry.
Here's your London event. Can you see that? Why are the presenters Muppets?
I don't know. I just thought it'd be funny. And I just picked them at random. And so that's happening in a couple of weeks, I think, a few weeks. And it's just going to be kind of a cool conference, a day event.
Awesome.
There's a huge demand for it. And myself and Sherry Dennison, as well as Brian Opton-Kelder, will be joining me. They're both superstars in their own right. So if you're in the London, Ontario area, please feel free to check out the London Preppers Conference event. We don't really have a name for it. I don't know what we're going to call it, but we're going to grow it. Probably make this a yearly thing. So let's focus on the psychological aspect.
You guys are in the area. 22nd. Check it out. Email info@ontariopreppers.ca. Excellent.
Thanks, man. Thanks
No
for that
sweat.
plug.
Of course.
It's gonna be fun.
And now we can plug some memes.
Meantime.
You ready? I have 2 of my own here.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to laugh.
I was laughing when you're talking about like serious stuff because I was looking at these memes. All right. It says when you read about some nonsense happening in the military, but you don't care because you have a DD-214. And that's the discharge paperwork. I'm not sure what it is for your guys' military, but and then we have my second one. Where is it? Or this is one of yours. It says Keith Richards teaching Willie Nelson how to play guitar. Why is he a baby?
Because Keith is, yeah.
He's
so
just that old. Yeah, he's just that old.
He's just that old.
And then we have the no chew deterrent, which is not really getting a ringing endorsement because it's all chewed up. And then we have, where is it?
I must say that you had that
not
one
getting my next one.
before.
All right, here. Let me stop. I'm gonna go to. Let me do the screen. It wasn't switching to the next one. Here's one of mine. It says, "Of course, size matters. No one wants a small cup of coffee." And then we have, "I don't taste Five Guys."
Oh, that's mine too.
With Dahmer.
Jesus.
And then we got my hit next isn't working on these. I'm gonna have to do them individually. What's our next one here? Says, "Nah, man, night shift isn't too bad. You just have to get used to it." Michael, age 24. I've seen similar ones about like being in the infantry or something. And there's a guy with like blowed out knees and everything.
Isn't that Saddam Hussein?
Yeah, it looks like him.
Jesus.
Yeah, I cracked. I don't know why.
All right, and then this is the one that cracked me up when I was watching the when you were talking and I couldn't
This is
see
the goose one.
No, it says when you've been in queue to see the Queen for 14 hours and the pants are all full. I don't know why it's not letting me hit next. I have to do them individually, but that's okay. Can you see that one?
Yeah.
I thought you know that made me laugh. I don't know why.
Yeah, it says me when the restaurant brings out bread for the table, you turn into a duck. Oh, there we go. Okay. I still can't switch next. I don't know why.
I had the same one. That was funny.
Here we go. Not a cell phone in sight, just people living in the moment, hacking each other to bits.
Yes. Awesome.
Then we got, yeah, I think that's all of them, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, you got him. Hilarious.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We always have a little news for you. Like to keep it light too. It's not all doom and gloom here. Sometimes it's insulting and lurid memes.
Yeah. Yeah, that one night when we were making fun of Shay's hat.
Yeah, that was good. The
that was a good
raccoon
time.
asshole hat.
And the dog balls.
Yeah.
Ah, shit.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So hit us with some questions, guys. We still got a few minutes. I know some people talk about Nord Stream pipeline. I'll hit that real quick. What I think, I'm curious to think what you guys think. I've heard all the arguments that I know of. There may be some weird ones out there that I haven't heard. It just doesn't. Obviously, anything's possible. It's possible that Russia decided for whatever reason to blow up its own pipeline and get rid of its leverage. Like there's this myth of the rational actor. So the idea that it couldn't have happened because that would be stupid doesn't mean it can't happen. People do stupid shit all the time. But I don't think it makes sense to me. I think it's much more likely that the NATO forces, some of which, like the United States, have actually literally threatened to stop the pipeline from being there if Russia invaded Ukraine mere months ago. I think it's much more likely that they did that. I think it's much more in their interests to do that than it would be in Russia's interest to do it. I think if I had to guess, the plan would be destroying the pipeline prevents Europe, specifically Germany, from kind of like giving up and giving in to Russian demands to turn the gas back on. Now they have no choice but to resist. I think the whole idea of Russia doing it to try to get out of contracts or whatever, they've already done that. They've already done force majeure stuff by being like, oh, we have an oil leak, we can't send it, sorry. So the idea that like whoever's enforcing this contract would be more of a force or a threat than NATO doesn't make any sense to me. And that they would voluntarily give up the ability to even reuse that as leverage or hang it over their head or restart it at any point within the next few years, probably at least 6 months, just doesn't make nearly as much sense to me. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't know. Like we discussed before about them finding a Russian passport.
Yeah.
But by the pipeline explosion. Now, when I was in the military and we were doing, even workups, trainings for any type of anything, you weren't allowed to have name tags. You weren't allowed to carry your wallet. You weren't allowed to carry any type of identification on you. Why the fuck would Russian Spetsnaz have a fucking passport on them? It's just like that when they found the passports in 9/11.
Right. Yeah, unburned and everything.
Unburnt in immaculate condition. Like, come on. Like, that's just stupidity. It was probably the states blowing it up just to be the states.
Yeah, someone Square Birdie says Russia could have done it to increase the fuel pressure on Europe. I mean, they control the supply. They already stopping it. I mean, certainly they could have. But I think, and I said this in I think a comment in one of my videos, maybe in the video, that if Russia did it, it would be a sign that they are not at all worried about having to use the gas for leverage at any point in the next 6 months to 2 years or whatever, however long it would probably take that to get fixed. So that is actually worse if Russia did it, much worse, because it would mean that they think they're in a much stronger position than I assume that they are, or they're in a much more desperate position, which I don't think is the case, because it would be them being like, we know we're not going to give any gas to Europe, and we want them to know that we're not going to give them gas to Europe. We don't even want them to think that that's a possibility. And I think that I still don't see how that's in Russia's best interests. In my mind, I still think that's in the interest of people who want NATO to be more involved, which I think is the US. But like I said, it's just my opinion. It's certainly possible for Russia to have done it, even if it doesn't make sense. But I think it's much more likely that someone that wants NATO more involved in this fight done it. Ukraine, Russia, whatever. I mean, Ukraine, US, whatever. But that's just my opinion. What do you think, Shay?
I think, if it was intentional, then it comes from a place of pettiness, and certainly consistent with his character and his mindsets.
From Putin, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's certainly possible if he just decided, like I said, it would only be because he wanted everyone to know that, like, you're not getting any gas, period.
Which is petty. It's like a kid in a sandbox, right? Just having a tantrum, really. Like I'm baffled that humanity, that we're still at this stage. It's like his feelings were hurt, so he's got to kill people to make up for it. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's a possibility, but I also don't think, like, I don't agree that this is a completely one-man show over there either. Like some people seem to think, like, there are councils and stuff like the Duma that Putin has to answer to, at least some respects. Like, he's not literally just unilaterally making every decision.
Fair.
But it certainly is a possibility. Because like I said, just the fact that even I could be wrong, that it's not in their interest, or even if I'm right, it doesn't mean that people aren't going to make a mistake. So it's certainly a possibility, but I'm of the opinion that it makes more sense that some NATO-aligned force did it than Russia did it. But I guess we'll see how it ends up.
I have no idea. They could speculate. I would know which way to guess either way.
Right.
But long and the short of it, I mean, just add it to the list of nonsense and that's happening with the planet. I'm thinking more in terms of food, how this has affected food prices.
So
a lot of my focus is there. Like, I understand the financial, the wars plural, all this sort of instability, and that's why a lot of my personal focus has been directed towards more from a practical, like, I work part-time at an organic farm now, on a more regular basis, to, like, get used to that practice and jump into the self-sustainability, because prices of food are ridiculous.
Oh, and it's going to get so much worse.
It's going to get terrible.
I really don't think we're even feeling the effect. Like, we're still feeling the effects of, like, just the COVID messing with supply chain. I think when, like, because the food that we're eating now isn't the stuff that they're growing or would be growing in Ukraine and everywhere this season. It'll be next year that everything. We've already heard farmers come out and saying, like, we're getting half our yields. Like, that's not the stuff that we're going to a store right now. It's the stuff that would be in stores in a few months or next year. So these, like, we're only getting crappy yields and the quality's worse, and India or whatever. Yeah, like,
it'll be a ripple effect, right? So prices are going to fluctuate with everything. So
what type of things are you buying, Shay? Like, both of you guys, what are you buying for food and to build up your preps?
Well, I'm clearing out my freezer now for deer. We got a deer at the property where I work. It's a small private operation. It's kind of neat actually. So we're getting rabbits, chicken. We already have the rabbits, chickens, and we're going to be getting goats and expanding from there with the same sort of mentality or motive for self-sustainability. But purchasing right now, I kind of have everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're kind of what I recommend for people. Proteins. If you get your and talk to Eric about that because you were talking about canned protein. I forget which product it was. It was a lot of protein in the cans, but that's where I focus. Fats and proteins, meats. Because vegetables you can grow, you can figure that out in the future, but meats is what you're gonna want.
Yeah, I mean, the best bet is if you can afford it and it makes sense logistically to store it, it's just whatever you eat normally. Because that way you don't have to change your diet, you don't have to change your lifestyle. But in general, the best prepping foods and the ones that I think are going to be hardest to get over the next few years are the grains always store real well. Rice, pasta, wheat, stuff like that. And we're hearing about rice shortages. Wheat from Ukraine and Russia is obviously going to be an issue. So that would be a good choice. And for, like you're saying, with the protein, spam is as much of a joke as it is of being a prepper food. It's like 350 now, and it still has like 1,000 calories, and it's all fat and protein. And the chili
is delicious.
It is good. I like it. And then the wolf chili and the stag chili are both really good macro split for a canned good. It has protein, fats, and carbohydrates for a couple bucks, all in the can that'll last for years. But any canned meats, they even have canned butter and canned bread you can get. Powdered eggs, if you can get them from any of the dehydrated stuff that you've tasted and know is good quality and good taste. Freeze-dried foods are great, but they're more expensive. MREs are fine, but again, they take up a lot of space and they're more expensive too. They have powdered butter, like Destiny's saying, powdered eggs, powdered milk, all that sort of stuff. Anything that has the nutrition that you need and it's long-term storage and relatively inexpensive now. And even stuff that doesn't last quite that long, if it's something you really use regularly and it lasts at least 3 to 6 months, like that stuff's gonna be more expensive in 3 to 6 months if you can even get it. So just get it now. Toothpaste, toilet paper, your shampoo, your razors, your anything you use for like your job or clothing or anything. Like if we actually do end up like this guy predicted, like I said earlier about China invading Taiwan, everything that we buy on a day-to-day basis is going to be impossible to get or incredibly expensive.
Do you guys think that just the way that we're kind of going, maybe this is something that kind of needs to happen to kind of show all these people that, it seems like only a small percentage of people like to prep and they like to do their things, and the other 80% like to call us tinfoil hat wearing motherfuckers and shit like that. Do you think it's maybe time for something like this to happen to kind of show those idiots that are going to be waiting there with their fucking hands out, waiting for the government to come help them, and it never does?
I mean, I think there's a certain number of percentage of the population, a certain pretty large percentage of the population that's never gonna, the grasshoppers, so to speak, that are never gonna deal with something until it happens and then act like it's everyone else's fault and problem to be fixed.
That's right. I would probably 60% would fall in that category for me. What would you say, Eric?
At least, I mean, definitely over 50%. The only question is whether it's 60% or 75, 80%, but it's a majority for sure.
Okay. So, and then there's another 10 or 15 that were miscellaneous or whatever. How many people are preppers, would you say? And I'll break that into two things because there are two categories, because there's a lot of people that are weekend warriors or, but then there's people that are taking a little bit more serious like us.
I would say, just based on what I know and everything, if you go from like a general category, people who say, hey, I realize something could happen and I might need a prepper pantry, I might need a blackout kit or whatever, and like that's the low end, the 72-hour kits and some level of prepping. Maybe 10% of people have at least something like that, but no more than that. And talking like actual prepping, like to go more than 90 days, 1% maybe.
Yeah, that's not a lot of people.
No, yeah. But I mean, that's a guess. That's a
That's a good metric too. If you got the 3 months, because that's a good metric. If you got 3 months worth of food, then your doors into the preparedness world.
Exactly. Yeah, you're solidly in prepping. I think if you can go 3 months without. But if you, like I said, there's quite a bit of people, and it's getting more now. Luckily, the COVID stuff has opened some eyes. So there's definitely more people now than 2 years ago, maybe. So I would say at least 10% of people are thinking about it. Maybe have a little bit extra food, a little bit extra, but aren't really set up to be self-sufficient. Yeah, High Desert Pioneer says that load. Like, that's my guess, but I mean, where you are, it's probably more. Like, realize I'm in a fairly big city with a bunch of normies. If you're much more rural area, especially in an area that's very red, you're probably a better position to find people who are more just self-sufficient in general. If you're living a more rural lifestyle, you can't, it's sort of like a fact of life that you can't just always get the stuff that you need whenever you want. You know, you're an hour drive at least from anywhere. So, but in just overall the entire population of the United States, because there's probably massive city areas where there's like no one is prepared. Yeah, it's probably 30% around here, and that's fantastic because you know how much that lowers the possibility of there being like major problems when 30% of your neighbors have a decent level of preparedness. That's awesome.
See, I'm out here in BC working, so it's not. You know, today I went for a scoot on my electric scooter because I'm one of those people now. So I couldn't imagine. But anyway, I look around and it's just like people are there, you know, still buying their $12 espressos at fucking Starbucks, or I just think that and they're landlocked. You know, out here in Vancouver Island, something catastrophic were to happen. Jesus Christ, I just can imagine what will happen. You can't go to a Costco on a Sunday because I feel like smashing my fucking cart into every fucker in front of me. And it's just, you know, people aren't ready for if something catastrophic would ever to happen.
I mean, people aren't ready for something mildly.
Oh,
a lot of people aren't ready. They don't know what to do. They have a flat tire or emergency. They'll stand there. They don't even think to call. They don't even know to call 911 or go run over and help someone. They literally they're so used to looking at everything through a screen that when they see something happen in front of them, they just. Ugh.
Yeah, and that adds to the decline of all the. You've got all these things that are happening naturally to the planets, and we're inducing certain things, and add the demasculation of men on top of it, because there's a lot like how many men could change a tire 20 years ago compared to the percentage today, I think is a quite different number.
Right.
But it's weird. We're in this really weird oddball time period where men there's not a lot of men like us out there.
No.
You know?
And honestly, it's less about the actual skill of like if you raise in certain situations, you're not going to know what a fucking post hole driver is or whatever. So some people use that as being like, oh, you're not a man if you don't know what this come along is or whatever. But it's more about less about the actual skill and more about the ability and like wherewithal to, you know, take charge of the situation, take responsibility, act, you know what I mean, and not just be a passive.
Sure, not be a pansy.
I mean? Yeah, just a passive pansy. But the tire, everyone should know how to use that. Obviously,
it's becoming a thing. Like there's a growth in cuckery, I guess we'll say, that's happening out there with society, and it's becoming easier for preppers,
physically weaker too. I mean, they're having military recruitment problems because first of all, no one wants to do it, and then beyond that, people are like these young kids are like hips are dislocating when they run a mile for the first time in their life because they've just been sitting in front of a video game. And these are like 18, 20-year-old kids, or like bodies are falling apart just trying to do basic PT.
It's funny you say that. I was out in the back 40 out shooting out here, and I had a rock puncture my tire, went straight through the fucking thing. And I would say middle of nowhere, no cell phone, no nothing. And I'm getting ready to change the tire. And I had about 4 or 5 people stop. Hey, you all right? You need any help? I'm like, and you know, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, come on. I know it's the fucking 2020s, but I'm still a fucking man. Like, come on. Just because I you know, it's not like I have a beard and a fucking ponytail and, you know, I'm out there, oh, please fucking help me. But, you know, it's nice that people stopped, but I was at one point, I was just like, come on, fucking, I'm not,
change your tire.
I'm not a piece of shit where I can't do this myself.
Well, yeah, and honestly, one of the bigger problems I see is when like whatever's in their head is this is the way you do something. When that doesn't work, it's just like blank. It's like a total. There's no lateral thinking, no problem solving. It's just like I normally call USA or AAA or whatever it is, and if that doesn't work, they're just like, and like there's no other. They're like that's it. There is no actual thinking or problem solving happening. So when the one thing they have in their head that this is what you do, if that doesn't work, it's just like you just freeze up.
what's funny too is they may know the concept, what it's called, changing the tire, but they wouldn't know how to do it. They would know, oh, I've seen this in a movie. And you got to go to the back of the vehicle.
Right.
Something in the trunk to trying to figure out how the mechanisms all work together.
If somebody doesn't know how to change a tire, I don't care if you're a man or woman. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Like it's quite. It's like making fucking toast. You know what I mean? It's that fucking easy. You should be able.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
do
you can watch like a 3-minute YouTube video on it, so which you should probably do just whenever you get your driver's license.
Well, yeah. My God, is that where we're at?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
Fuck.
But yeah, so we're at 7 o'clock. Any of you guys got any last minute? I think we covered pretty much most of the stuff on my list. But yeah, make sure you got some cash on hand. Make sure your food is stocked up, your water stocked. We've seen like what happened in Jackson not long ago. These are and now in Florida, like these are American cities that have issues with water, have issues with electricity, food.
These are serious issues. It's funny that we preach about this. We do this sort of stuff for some years now, and people are kind of learning the hard way. And I hate to say I told you so, but it's just so obvious in some ways. Maybe we can tap into what Dan was talking about another time about how some people are their head is in the sand. I think if I'll leave on this note, this would be my metric for determining if somebody wishes to be ignorant or not, is how they felt about the social dilemma. And if they said, no, I couldn't, I got in 10 minutes, I couldn't watch it and forget it, then it was like it was too much to be.
Which
they weren't
social
ready.
dilemma?
The movie, the documentary, The Social Dilemma, because it reveals
a lot about
the
study, the Milgram experiment or something?
I think they tapped on that, or they touched on that. They touched on a few different things. You guys haven't seen it?
No.
Well, it's fascinating. It's really.
I'll definitely check it out. Social Dilemma,
okay.
It's called.
Anyways, yeah, we can continue this another time, but it's people can't process it. My long and the short of it was that they aren't ready to be quote unquote. They're happy in their ignorance. They're too dependent on the existing systems. That'll be too shocking for them to fathom the idea of an EMP. So it's better for them to disassociate it from completely, almost like a psychological health mental mechanism. So I think that's what I probably were to think of, speculate as to what's happening.
Yeah,
people like you and we're different though. We're fighting, we're rebelling against what could be.
It's funny you talk about, like you saying, they're like rejecting it, like their mind's rejecting it. And I've actually I'm talking to another friend, we call it NPC face, when they like say something and you explain some like really obvious fact about like why that can't be true or how this, and they just give you this like complete blank stare and then just restart talking with like you never even said it. It's like their mind just literally rejects the information.
Wow.
You've never seen that? It's so bizarre when it happens.
Yeah. What's it called?
We call it NPC is not playing character. Yeah, because that's just the background guys in a video game or the NPCs. They're not real people. They're computer. So that's what like most people are. If you're an NPC, they're not real thinking people. They're background code in the Matrix or whatever.
Right.
And so you see their mind like starting to process it, realizing the implications of where that train of thought leads, and just shuts down. And then they just like instantly they start talking like you never said anything. It's so bizarre. Like they'll just go on to something else or repeat the same thing and just like refusal to even deal with that information. It's bizarre.
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking to my family. But one thing I will close on, I just want to appreciate everybody that's coming out to watch and us talk and stuff. It's great to see, names that keep popping up. Mark Olson, Destiny, a couple people that I see keep coming all the time, and I appreciate you guys here. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
And definitely one last time on TikTok, Gray Sox Productions to check out Dan, and then for the prepper meet that Shay's doing in London, Ontario, correct?
Mm-hmm. OntarioPreppers.ca. Just go to OntarioPreppers.ca.
You'll get the info. So if you're in the area, definitely get your skills up to speed and your knowledge.
And that website will take you to the event. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So cool, guys.
That was fun.
Fun.
Appreciate it, everyone. Thanks for watching. And I'm not sure exactly what the date will be for next time, but just keep checking back. It's usually every other week. I had some stuff going on. I couldn't do it last time, so I apologize for that. But
that's 2 times.
Yeah, I know. We'll be around.